All right, I'm going to create two more dashboards and a few more visualizations just so you can see some additional types of interactivity that you could build into dashboards. We're not going to cover all of the different actions that you can create, and you can certainly play around with those on your own, and if you want to include them in one of your dashboards, that's fine. But I'm just going to show you a couple of additional things that we could do. So I'm going to create several visualizations that are going to be used in one of the two dashboards I'm about to create. And I'm also going to create a couple of calculated fields. So I'm going to just do all the calculated fields first, even though they're going to appear in our last dashboard. The first thing I'm going to create is a profit ratio, and it's going to be an aggregate profit ratio. So I'm going to use the aggregation sum, and I'm going to take profit, and I want to divide that by the sum of sales. So that's my profit ratio. And then what I'm going to do is create a parameter. Now, if you watched the first video, you saw I created a parameter when I was during the process of creating a top filter. But you could create parameters just like you create a calculated field, and you do it the same way. I'm clicking on the drop down box, and instead of calculated field, I'm going to say parameter. And I'm going to call this parameter my profit ratio target. All right, so this is my key performance indicator, or my profit ratio is my key performance indicator. This is my profit ratio target. And I'm going to change this value to 0.15. And then I am going to click OK. I'm going to go down to this parameter. I'm going to choose the drop down menu and go to default parameters, number format, and I'm going to choose %. So we've done this before, but I just want to point out the steps one more time. And then I'm going to create a calculated field. So create calculated field, and this calculated field is going to be my my target ratio minus yeah, let's go ahead. This is just called my target minus my profit ratio. There's probably a better name for that, but let's leave that for right now. Now, in this particular calculation, I'm going to create or use some of the logical functions within Tableau, specifically some of the if-then, else logic. So I'm going to start off by saying if, if what I'm going to look at is our profit ratio, right? That's a calculated field. And I'm going to say if our profit ratio is greater than or equal to our target, right? So that's that parameter, which is our profit ratio target. If that's the case, then that's good. So I'm going to say then, and you could use whatever wording you want, good, bad, acceptable. Else, meaning if the profit ratio is less than our profit ratio target, then that's bad or poor, or again, whatever wording you want to use, and then end. So so now I've got this logic where I'm looking at the value of this calculation. If it's greater than or equal to this parameter, then it's acceptable. If not, it's poor, and then I'm done. So this calculation is valid, and now I have that in there as well. And you'll notice that it's a calculation showing up as a measure, but it's blue, meaning it's discrete, because it's either acceptable or poor. Those two things, it's text, it's not a continuous variable. All right, so we've created those. Again, we're going to come back to those fields in a little bit. For right now, I'm going to create some some views to be used in our next dashboard. I'm going to create a sales by region. So we've kind of seen this. I'm going to take region, I'm going to drag it to rows, I'm going to take sales, I'm going to add it to columns. So something that's we've done this before. I'm going to take region, drag it onto color, and excuse me, I'm going to sort it. Sales by region, very simple visualization. And now I'm going to do this by create sales and profit by state. So let's name this sales by profit by state. I'm going to drag sales to rows. Okay. I'm going to drag profit to columns, which is going to give me this this graph, right? This graph with sales on one axis and profit on the other. Then I'm going to take state and I'm going to add it to the details card in the marks shelf. And now I have details of each state and where the combination of profit and sales are for each state. And what I want to do is also drag region to colors in the mark shelf. So now we can look at we could highlight, as we know, if we want to focus on the south, we can. If we want to focus on the central, we can, so on and so forth. So that makes it easier to focus on a particular region. The next thing I want to do is I want to change the shapes here. So I'm going to click on the shape card in the mark shelf. I'm just going to change it to a solid circle rather than an open circle. That's really it. And you can play around with those if you want, but I'm going to leave it like that. I think making it a solid circle makes it a little bit easier. The next thing I'm going to do is, and I'm doing this for really the next, the view, for a view I'm going to build. But what I'm going to do is I want to create a map view based on region. But you'll notice if you look at region, Tableau has assigned it this icon, ABC. It says it's just text. In other words, it doesn't recognize that this may be this is really an underlying geographic piece of data. So let's change it. We can do that. And I'll show you how to do that in Tableau. We're going to go to region in the drop-down menu, and then we're going to go to geographic role, and I'm going to go all the way down to create from and select state. Okay, so what we're doing is applying the geographic information contained within states to regions. So now you'll notice that first of all, it's lumped these two things together, or grouped them together, region and state. And now region has the geographic icon. So now what I could do is double click on state. Whoops, that's not what I meant to do. I want to create a new view. There we go. Double click on state. Now we have our state map, and I'm going to drag region to the color mark. And so what I want to do is, so that we don't have just circles, I want to choose the map, the map visualization. And now again we have a simple visualization of region and state, and that's it. It's really just a big legend that I'm going to include in my dashboard. So let's go ahead and let's just call this region or regions, and that's all that we're doing. So now what I'm going to do is create a action dashboard based on the key performance indicators, the profit visualizations that we did. So I'm going to create a dashboard, and I am going to take sales by region. and I want that to appear on the top, right? So I've just dragged that on. That's taking everything, that's taking up all the space for right now. I want to take sales by profit by state and have that appear on the bottom left, but which right now is the bottom. And then I'm going to take the region, which again is kind of my legend, and just place that to the right of my sales by profit. I'm going to remove this legend. We don't need it. That's in essence what I've done right there. So let's remove that. That gives us a bit more room. I'm going to go ahead and move everything up, right? Because we don't need all that empty white space for our sales by region. So then I'm going to create an action. Again, I'm going to dashboard, actions. I'm going to create add action in this dashboard. Rather than a filter, I'm going to create a highlight action. This then appears similar to the action filter. So I'm going to name this highlight region. We have the same thing, source sheet and target sheets. For the source sheet, I'm going to select sales by regions. So I'm deselecting regions and sales by profit by state. For the target, I want everything else. So I'm going to unselect sales by region. So I'm selecting regions and sales by profit. I want this to happen when I click on one of these marks. So select is what I want. That's already by default what's chosen. Everything else is going to remain the same. So I'm going to click OK, and then I'm going to click OK again. Then I'm going to go to sales by region, and I'm going to make that a filter. So I'm clicking on the use as filter for sales region. And then I am going to go to the drop down menu and go ignore actions. And that's just so that I'm not filtering out this particular view. So what have we done? It is not necessarily a incredibly interactive dashboard. It's really a dashboard, and we created an action, a highlight action that does just that. It allows us to highlight different regions. So if I want to focus in on the East, I just click on the mark for sales in the East, and I'm looking at the East. And obviously South, West, and Central. So this dashboard is my my highlight dashboard, and let's go ahead and add that to the title. Okay, so now I'm going to create a couple more worksheets for the next dashboard. And in this one, I'm going to drag order date to columns. I'm going to change that to month, but discrete months. I just want to see January through December. Let's go ahead and fit with so we can see everything. I'm going to drag profit ratio, the target minus the profit ratio. Is my target greater than or equal to or less than the profit ratio? I'm going to drag that to the color shelf, and you'll see we've got poor or acceptable in here right now. Then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to drag it to the shape card, but you'll notice the shape isn't there. So let's go ahead and click on shape so that we see it. I'm going to drag, whoops, I forgot one thing. I'm going to drag region to rows. We want to see this by regions. And I'm going to drag that target minus profit ratio to shape. And I'm doing that so that I can adjust the shapes. Rather than squares and circles, I want to see something else in this basically a scorecard is what I'm creating. So I'm going to click on the shape card. I'm going to go to where it gives me different palettes I can choose from. And the palette I'm going to choose from is this one called KPI. And then what I'm going to do is click on the acceptable, and I'm going to choose one of these shapes, right? So actually these all look the same to me. Maybe I'm missing something, but if it's acceptable, I'm going to display a green check mark. And if it's poor, I'm going to assign a red X. I'm going to click OK, and now you can see we've got X's if we've missed our target, and check marks if we've made the target. So this is my region scorecard. Let's name this region scorecard. And then the next thing I'm going to do is create a profit ratio by region worksheet. So let's go ahead and name that before we do anything else. Profit ratio by region. So now I'm going to double click on region, which is going to create a map, because remember we've assigned region to, we've made it geographic data earlier. I'm going to drag profit ratio to the color shelf. We could see the profit ratios. I think I'm gonna, or the shadings, I'm gonna go ahead and add that to the text mark. And I think I forgot to do this. I'm gonna go to profit ratio, and I'm gonna change the format to percent. Okay, so now we're looking at the percent of the profit ratio. I've already put on the label, and now I am going to go to this parameter that we created, profit ratio target, and I'm going to say show parameter. This is similar to when we had filters and you had to say show filters. So now we see this, in the legend. Now this doesn't matter for this particular view, but we're going to use this when we create our dashboard. And if it's not in this view, when we drag it onto the dashboard, it won't be available. So that's why I've added it. So I'm going to create my dashboard. So this is my my profit KPI dashboard. Let's go ahead and show that as the title. I'm going to drag the profit by region there we go, profit ratio by region, and I want that to be at the top. So right now I'm just dragging that on. I'm going to take my region scorecard, and I'm going to add that to the bottom. I don't need the legend, right? We know, X or check, acceptable or poor. We know that, so I'm going to click on this legend and remove it. Again, I don't need to know that. I know what a check or an X means visually, so I'm going to remove that. I'm going to remove the profit ratio because we see the profit ratio, so I'm going to remove that. And then I'm going to take this parameter, choose the drop-down menu, and I'm going to choose floating. And that just is going to allow me to place it anywhere on this dashboard. I'm just going to stick it right down there on the map visualization. So now watch what happens as I modify the target, specifically to the region scorecard. The state or the map of the regions is not going to change. That's telling us what the profit ratio is. But if I change the profit ratio target to 10%, as you would expect, we see more check marks. We see more of the regions meeting that target across different dates. If I go up to 20%, we're going to have very few regions and months that are reaching that target. And so again, this is just a simple dashboard, and really the only interactivity in this dashboard is the parameter